Another game, another caster. Middlecourt, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just been over to Berlin, cutting a few copper wires through there. Not doing anything too nefarious, but hey, back on the LJL, it's always going to be a good time.
We'll get the Sherlocks on the case there. Some inspecting might need to be done there, but either way, onto this game. Game number 4, Sengoku versus Burning Core. Boom! You already knew that was coming, but let's talk about day 7. These two teams did meet. It was a bit of a slow start, I will say, from Sengoku. My words have just disappeared. It was a slow start from Sengoku. That's a bit of a tongue twister. But in the mid game, they pulled through. They did the classic Sengoku. They just became good team fighters, and then they just pick up the win. That's what they do every single time. They're seeming very, very difficult to beat. Recollect, you've got a smirk. Is this because you have the key to success against Sengoku?
Oh, absolutely not. They're going to body everyone. No. No, I mean, Sengoku is just really good. I mean, it's one of those where, I think, stylistically speaking, you do have an okay matchup into them. The biggest, light, that I am worried about, shall we say, is the mid lane matchup. Because Jet has been smurfing on every single person in every single game since the split started, and this guy looks like a complete beast. I am very worried about, what is going to happen there, and I think that any plans you have of beating Sengoku has to revolve around shutting Jet out of the game, whether that means you gank it a million times, or if you try and pinch in champion pool, but Jet's got a little bit of an ocean himself, so it's quite difficult to do.
Yeah, that is difficult indeed, and I said, you know what? Jet is a good player, and Dice is also a good player.
Yeah.
But we're not going to talk about them. We're talking about Ray Farkey, and we're talking about Paz. Let's bring up the stats onto the screen. Let's go. We're talking about top lane today. It's Ray Farkey, Paz, and this are the stats that I've chosen. Kill participation coming through here. Ray Farkey with a 64%. It's Paz with the 50%. Damage percentage. Ray Farkey topping the charts once again. 27% versus 20%. And the gold difference. Ray Farkey with the strong gold lead. The good bank account. 771 in the lead at 15 minutes. Ray Farkey could be the key to success for me. I feel like maybe they can take this advantage of playing Paz as the weak side. Maybe they play strong side for Ray Farkey. Maybe they pick up the win. Am I crazy?
Yeah, no, I don't think you are. And I think that it is important that you do caveat at the end that Paz is a bit more weak side. These stats may bend Paz as a particularly poor top laner when compared to Ray Farkey, but I think in terms of skill level, this is probably the most even point that Burning Core have got, and that's really speaking to the quality of Ray Farkey and to how good the other members of Sengoku are. We do know that Ray Farkey can play a few of his carries. I do like the AP Gragas, although maybe some people don't like it as much, and Paz can get focused out if Flawless is going to put a lot of his attention there. But then it's just a case of if Burning Core are able to accelerate this top side enough that it covers the likely deficits they're going to be suffering in mid and bot lane.
Yeah, definitely going to be likely deficits. Obviously, the bot lane of Sengoku, well, we've talked about it a few times. Honey, Vital, whoever is playing, they're going to be dangerous. The side of Burning Core, though, I think have actually got a lot better. As the season has gone on, they started off quite shaky, I would say, but they've slowly but surely got a little bit more up there. Recollect, would you say that this is a place where they could maybe look to win this, or are you actually saying, you know what, Burning Core, just play through your solo laners?
I think that this is a really awkward one, because historically when you look at Burning Core as a team, it was always, okay, we got 3 great players, and then we have a bot lane. And that's kind of like how they were viewed, was like it was a split but on the list. And I don't necessarily think that split identity is completely gone. However, there's definitely been steps in the right directions here. I think if you're able to get some of the LJL guys to say, damn, Yuhi's looking okay this split, you know that there's been a level up come through. So it's clear that at the very least they have improved there. However, you are playing against one of the better bot lanes regardless of which AD carry comes in. It's crazy that Sengoku has probably a top 5 AD carry as their substitute. So it's one of those where I think it is still a mismatch. Maybe you play through it, but personally, it really depends on what you put Ray Farkey on. Because if you're playing that GP, you can do whatever you want, right? If you play one of these, which is the most played for him. If you want to play something else, you're gonna have to essentially plan around that. But I think shut down Jet, play around Ray Farkey. That's probably your best bet.
Yeah, I would really like to see the Darius. That's personally what I would like to
Yes.
see. You know, I feel like we've not seen it at all, and I want to see that Darius come through, and it's a strong pick. It's good against tanks. Like, what could go wrong?
I mean, the only issue is that it seems to be banned permanently against Ray Farkey. The percentage on that one is absolutely astronomical because not only is it a pretty decent pick, but Ray Farkey has shown a lot of this historical prowess on it, and is one of those few top laners that really likes to take it to his opponent and try and find some of these solo kills.
Now, the caveat to that for me is that Sengoku, I think it's fair to say, have been playing it a little bit more maybe loose or risky. I don't know which way you'd want to throw it, where they've been looking in some stuff that is a little bit more interesting. They played the Zac within all scaling lanes. They've played some different styles. So maybe they switch up the bans as well. Maybe they're like, you know what? We're going to try the Ray Farkey as well. We're going to see how far we truly can go with our luck. Recollect, if you were Paz though, what would you pick into this Darius?
The first thing I would pick is the uninstallation button, and I'd FF15. I think if you're playing, like, let's be honest, if you're playing against the one trick, it's getting banned. Like, if Darius gets through, I think that's already a problem. I think there are things you can obviously do against it. I mean, we've seen people play GP into it, which feels awkward. We've seen people play Gnar into it, which is again feels awkward, but you can do it. I mean, you can do Kenna, which again feels awkward. It's one of those where it's like, I think that you have options. I just don't think there's any point in doing it against Burning Core, because why are you giving their best player their one trick / best champion? It just seems like one of those where it's like, you could do it if you want to like flex, I guess, but you could also just take a fat L and then be even with DFM in the standings, which doesn't feel like a good idea.
This is the thing for me. It's like, if you give over that Darius and build your composition and the way that you draft around countering it, is that actually going to give you more value than if you just take the Darius off the board?
Yeah, I'm kind of, that's kind of like my mindset on it as well. I think that it's one where it's an option that you can explore, but when you like run the logical line on it, it's like, it's not worth, is it, against Burning Core? Just don't bother. Like, you can obviously play things into it. I think it's just an unnecessary risk, especially if you are the favorites in the series. You don't need to try spicy stuff.
Yeah, and I also want to say shout out to the mainstream, because very much like me, they decided to run the same two comparisons of the players.
Are you kidding me?
They also looked at Ray Farkey versus Paz because they knew that this is where it's at, guys. They knew that this is the situation, and they're looking like key players. KDA. So yeah, there we go. Being the mainstream, we're on the synergy. You know, that's how it's going to be. Hopefully. And I am saying this hopefully, shout out to you, Echo KO, Burning Core on the synergy today, because I really want to see Sengoku get tested. Are they ready for the smoke that Burning Core can bring? That is the question I'm asking you. Quick predictions. Who do you think's winning this game? Recollect, you go first.
I mean, my prediction would be Sengoku, with the caveat that if Flawless plays the way that Flawless can, Burning Core has a chance. This guy has been an absolute monster. He's a beast, but I think Sengoku probably takes it.
Middle court prediction.
Yeah, I think Sengoku, again, with the caveat that if Burning Core like explode their Nexus, then Burning Core would win.
Well, with that being said, they're looking for that extra 50 gold. We'll see who does get it. On to this final game, Sengoku versus Burning Core, Miracle Recollect. Let's get into it.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Did you like that? Did you like that, Recollect? Did you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved that. I loved every single moment of it. It was fantastic. It was brilliant, and hopefully this game will be too, with the Talia and Wukong already off the table. Darius is open so far.
Yes, it is. I imagine that one's going to be hitting the ban table fairly soon for Sengoku, or they could leave it open with the anticipation that Burning Core wouldn't want to pick it in this first rotation. A lot of intricacies that are sort of left available in this draft as it stands, as Jungle Pool not really taken as much of that focus. The Talia we've been seeing rising in priority a bit more into the mid lane, so that's less focused away at Flawless specifically, although we have already seen him play it.
I like to imagine the biggest flex here would just be Paz first picks the Darius and just absolutely
Oh,
runs
yeah.
the game
Oh,
on
yeah.
it. That would be fantastic. That would be brilliant. I would love every minute of that. But yeah, as you say, a lot of these jungle pools still available. Specifically, I think the Trundle Poppy is the trait that we've been seeing a lot of now rise up. The Viego's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit here, which is interesting to note, especially given the fact that the Trundle is available, but so is that Renata Glask and the Zeri. Both these two known as the bot lane powerhouses, especially with all these bans coming through. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those guys come in. They definitely can take over a game, and it is going to be the Lightning Legend, the Zeri, coming through.
And it's going to be Vital piloting her, because for the 6th game in a row, Sengoku opted to go with their other incredibly cracked Korean AD carry. Burning Core could now respond by picking up an AD carry of themselves, actually blinding the Azir in the mid lane for Dice, and then also trading AD carries with that core, with that Ezreal.
So I'm kind of interested by this because Dice obviously is a great control mage player. My only issue is that Jet loves to play Yone into these kind of standardized control mages, and that is still available, and it's kind of a Jet staple at this point in the LJL. So I don't like Azir blind if it's into Jet. It's fine in general, but this guy loves to play assassins and dive in, and Akali fits that bill. It's something that can abuse this Azir matchup very well, especially post 6. So I don't like blind Azir into Jet, especially when Yuumi is on the table too. Zeri Yuumi, abusive, scales for free. I feel like Sengoku were very happy with their first 3.
Yeah, oh, this is going to throw a little bit of spice into the mix. We've seen the Pike as an answer into the likes of the Zeri Yuumi before. Obviously, there's only one target that you can go for with your hook, and it's such an effective tool at shutting down this lane that does want to play a bit more passively, that does want to scale up.
Yeah, absolutely. It does also create a little bit of a potential issue with consistency, though. You're not going to have the same reliability as something like a Nautilus after 6 or a Leona. There is that a lot more nuance, and you have to really play around that hook. Plus, Burning Core right now lacking consistent engage elsewhere too, so I'm expecting them to try and round out the rest of their composition with something like that. However, they've already got a very long-range composition with the Ezreal and the Azir. Question is, can they maintain their range as the game goes later?
We see a couple top lane bans, the Sejuani taken away from Paz, and that Darius. Like we theorized, Sengoku would be taken away. Burning Core not quite happy to blind that, and Sengoku going, nope, this is not something you can lock in R5 and completely screw over the rest of our composition. It does mean that we are likely to see Rayfarki on something a bit more of a tank, a bit more engage focus. I think maybe that Gragas is going to be coming through as well.
It is interesting, I think, as well, that we saw the Pike come through here on the R3 spot. I feel like you could have pivoted Darius there. Maybe you ban out next 2 phase, and then you're feeling pretty good. Yeah, Pike probably goes away, which is obviously a loser classic, but you are still able to have more options. So I think maybe that was I guess it's just a preference sort of situation for how they wanted to play out the lane. But with the way that Burning Core are drafted, they have drafted very defensively so far, right? My worry is, does that mean they're going to be playing a strong side top laner versus Paz, or are they going to, which obviously is fine, does likely what we wanted Burning Core to do to begin with. The issue is, will they be able to get away with it? And the Gnar, so it is a bit of a pivot where you can play aggressive in lane, but you can also play defensive, so a bit of a best of both worlds there.
But it's also intriguing because it's leaving the counter pick to Flawless. And I mean, this is something that we've seen Burning Core do more than any other team in the LGL, but I don't really feel like that jungle counter pick has been as impactful as it could be. All too often we're seeing something like a Lee Sin picked up there, and it doesn't really impact the game as much. Viego going to be picked up for once.
Middle, are we going to get Kindred?
You're praying, and I mean, Flawless
I am actually thinking
to pull it out here.
I really want to see, like, this is like all of the conditions we were talking about before so I was on Twitter, I messaged, I was like, Kindred feels really nice to play right now, why is no one picking her? And a bunch of sort of criteria were picked. It was lack of lanes, it was the fact that you're picking it early and it's not playing for the team. I think Kindred here is actually disgustingly good. Please don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it to me. Don't. No!
It had to happen. It had to happen. Oh, are you gonna need a moment to recover, Recollect?
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. I I was like, oh, they're
And
picking jungle late.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about. Recollect the R5 jungle doesn't really change the way that this composition wants to play. So in that case, why not just leave a counter pick to your top laner?
It's fine. You know, I'm okay. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. It's Trundle into Scion. That's the idea, right? We're just going to take the
Yeah.
stats, and that'll be fine. Which is great until someone decides they want to Bouse it, and then you don't actually have a Trundle pick that's useful. Which then becomes a problem.
My Subjugate is very ineffective against this Trundle that has built Dustblade and Yomus. It's just when the Scion goes for that sort of build, yeah, you can't
It's
skill as
fine.
many resists.
We won't do that. Like, we're gonna build full tank anyway, and it'll be okay. But it's
okay.
Yeah. So that's the idea is that no one is gonna think about like doing builds that aren't on Mobile. So I think we're okay. However, yeah, I am a little bit upset, of course. I think that Trundle is fine. Like, it's okay. The matchup into Viego is obviously known to be fairly reasonably okay. It's fine into the Scion too. You can take his stats, assuming it's a tank Scion. I wonder if they might have been preferring this because it enables them to maybe be a bit more aggressive in the early and actually play with a ganking setup tool, because they do lack that a little bit here for the side of Burning Core. For the actual ganks themselves, there's not a lot of CC preparation pre-6. I worry, though, whether or not they're going to be able to defend, shall we say, against the dive threat that Sengoku now has with Jet and the mobility that Vital can provide, because they don't have the best lockdown available to themselves.
You've got, like, Emperor's Divide to kind of shove someone back, and then that's pretty much it. And you touched on how, in terms of gank setup for Burning Core, they don't really have as much. I think a similar story, honestly, on the side for Sengoku. Yes, you've got that decimating smash for Scion, but Rayfaki shouldn't really be getting hit by those. And then the bot lane, you're waiting to level 6. In the mid lane, no CC at all. So I'm worried. Recollect that we are going to be having a little bit of a slower paced early game, but I think for Sengoku, when you've got these late game carries like the Zeri, like this Akali, and then the tank the Scion could provide, and he scales up, I'm not sure they're going to be complaining. Yeah,
luckily in this one, it looks like Blitzcore is got a 52% chance of winning, so great stuff there for the LJL. I'm definitely worried. I think that there's a lot of issues with this red side draft. They do obviously have some strong lanes, specifically in that top side. The bottom lane is relatively okay. The issue I have in my mind is Yuumi Zeri gets to scale for free.
Yes.
And Zeri with a bunch of carries, even Akali, is going to be a problem. Because you just jump onto Akali, you ult when she dives in, CC her target, and they basically have zero counterplay. Because no one on red side can actually peel that effectively outside of Azir ulting. Which obviously Akali has outplay potential too innately. So I think that compositionally there are issues. I think stylistically there are a couple problems as well. But Burning Core, they'll have to play through this top side, and that's exactly what we are seeing with this jungle pathing. Both junglers aware of the strength here of Rayfaki as that win condition here for Burning Core.
And you see those solo lanes for Burning Core also getting a bit more of that priority. Obviously, you expect that from Inar, and as good as Jet is, he can't really overcome the fact that Akali's early game maybe not particularly strong, especially against someone like Azir, who can put down those soldiers and get a little bit of free poke, get a little bit of free damage as well.
Oh, I love that one.
Has he actually...
Yep. Just gone straight around the ward, no vision. Dice has no idea this is happening. Might just get ganked from the fog of war. Here comes once.
No way. The Shurima shuffle out of there. And Dice is able to escape. That was very, very smart stuff from once. And it's stuff like that, which is why we've been talking about him being possibly the strongest jungler in the league right now.
Oh yeah, I say that once is the best jungler right now. It's something, a statement that I've held in pretty high regard so far, since watching this split break out. And the best part about this is the fact that Flawless went towards the top side for Sengoku, found no camps, walked away, so no actual jungle disadvantage was created. It's the same timers, it's the same difference, shall we say, in terms of camp spawn. So Sengoku are going to be in a really good spot here for second clear too. It's just a free attempt, which unfortunately didn't work out, but it's smart pathing and it's little things like this that really give Sengoku advantages when they do work out.
And hey, if nothing else, it's a a little bit of time where Jet isn't like just perma under his tower, right? And giving this Kali as much space as possible, it is a win condition for Sengoku in this early game. And the fact that Jet is staying relevant on CS, yes, he's down a couple pots, yes, the sustain war is obviously not one that he's winning. That's a good sign for things going forward. Once now, thinking about a gank in this bot side, obviously very low CC, but I think more just to back up the aggression that Vital and NT are putting out there.
Yeah, and it is one of those lanes where if you're able to play with this much aggression and freedom, this area is going to feel really good about it. It is nice at the very least that we are seeing the teleport being run here by Yuhi. I think a lot of AD carries have stopped running that spell. It does enable you obviously for early tier base, which is kind of what we're looking at here with the current sort of itemization, being that we do have that longsword start instead on the Ezreal for a bit more early trading power. However, whether or not it's going to be worthwhile, I don't know. Because in exchange for this, scaling to 2 items and feeling great Ezreal, is this area with a bunch of defensive summoners scaling to 3 items and no one that can lock her down. So I feel like Burning Core right now, I need to see a bit more out of Flawless to find some sort of gank. Has instead just been farming. Is going to get this dragon, which is very nice for them. But if you're not shutting out some of these members, specifically obviously Jet in the mid lane and Vital towards the bottom side, you're slowly but surely allowing the itemization to come online for Sengoku, and they start to feel really, really good on their champions.
But I think it's difficult for Flawless because these solo lanes have been incredibly pushed in favor of Burning Core the whole time, and well, Yuhi and Loser had the wave basically at Vital and NT's towers for a fair chunk of time in that bot side as well. And Trundle not really a champion that can go for a lot of these proactive dives, much more favored in these skirmishes, like what's going to be occurring with Once here, forcing the flash out of the Sengoku jungler.
Okay, so not quite Blabber there from Once, doesn't flash towards the crab for the smite, is going to get away.
That's what you said.
Yeah. What else do you call it when a jungler just starts dying at crab with no prio? That's got to be called Blabber, no?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. Jet is really appreciating the durability patch. A 12.11 enjoyer there.
Yeah, absolutely, and crucially,
the punishment.
But does have teleport and is level 6. So the breakpoint of this matchup has been met. Did go into the alternator as well. To my knowledge, this is all you need to now one-shot Azir. So we can see a lot more. It's really silly. We can see a lot more power now coming through from Jet. It's likely going to be playing a lot more up in the lane, immediately just running a dice in the mid lane there. I think that this is your window as Flawless is kind of gone now, because you don't really get Prio easily back, I don't think, in that mid matchup, which means that now you can't move towards this bottom side without getting collapsed on. You can't really move to this Rift Herald particularly easily, because as a top side, I think level 6s are looking pretty good here from the side of Sengoku, especially when you don't have that tankiness yet for Paz. So I feel that it's really going to be on the Trundle to make up for that lack of CSing, or lack of ganking with that CS, potentially looking to be that primary carry themselves with this Sheen buy coming through, is looking for a bit more of that dueling potential, and a little bit of faster clearing too. So Flawless, I need to see whether or not, once you do hit that level 6 mark, whether or not it will be enough to impact this Viego in isolation, or at least clear fast enough to make up for it.
Yeah, that small series of exchanges that we just saw in the bot lane, Yuhi and Loser, I think just about working out that Once was probably hiding in that bush, and so not overstepping, not giving the Viego an opportunity to go forward and find some of these kills. We did just see Once hit level 6, so now has access to that Heartbreaker strike, a massive spike for this Viego, but I'm not sure how much it helps him in the 1v1 versus Flawless. This jungle can absolutely beat down on the Viego, but the roams and the escape into the jungle means that Sengoku back away from the play. They might look for a re-engage though. As
Zeri and Yumi are coming
by the
too
Spectral Maw. Jet thinking about going over the wall.
It's 5v4. Ezreal's not here.
Here comes Paz diving onto Ray Farkiers. There's the engage. Flawless caught out, subjugated as Jet dives away from the pullback from Burning Core. The final chapter. Not quite going to find the lockup needed for Sengoku to get any more, but it's first blood and it's going to be Rift Herald as well.
Yeah, no final chapter, but perhaps a prelude in this one, as it's a nice kill there going over here for the side of Sengoku. They pick up that first blood. It's just the rotation difference. Ezreal was not here, and now they're trying to use that 5v4 to go for the Herald. It's the Trundle who's not here, so there's no teleport or anything that could come in, but it feels like the poke from Burning Core is too much.
Yeah, the long range from the Azir and from that Ezreal. Rayfaki also going mega on the Gnar. It'll be such a massive nuisance. Huge CC tools obviously available in that kit once, though, respecting the lockdown potential, getting the dash away without getting caught out, but its advantages going in favor of Burning Core.
And it's just the faster rotations. Paz is coming from the top side to make it a 3v3, and then look at the bot lane coming up as well. So it's a 5v4 situation. Sengoku feel like they can just pull the trigger. Jet engages, easy damage coming through, and once picks up the kill. From here, maybe they could look to do more. They weren't sure of the Ezreal, I imagine, so they do just disengage it at that point. But it's a nice, easy kill. It just shows a bit of coordination. That is something that a lot of these teams in the LJL have struggled with a little bit.
Yeah, definitely not Sengoku, though, for the majority of stages. But, I mean, credit to Burning Core. They were able to come back in that exchange, pressure away the league leaders, and secure themselves an early Herald. Hey, they've got the Ocean Drake as well. And with Infernal spawning in 20 seconds, Loser establishing a little bit of vision in Sengoku's jungle, I think Burning Core could be pretty happy with how they've navigated these early stages.
I just want to say as well that I think the most impressive part of that last play is the fact that Sengoku were defensive when they were numbers down, aggressive when they were numbers up. Burning Core would just stayed aggressive the whole time. They didn't respect the game state change. And I think that was a really big factor in that first kill. And I wonder whether it's something that Burning Core will be able to grow into the game and adjust, because it's something they have struggled a bit with in this match in general.
Ooh. Very, very fast fingers to get away from Dice there. Obviously level 9 now. The Emperor's Divide has been online for a little bit, and it's such a potent tool against a character like Viego, who needs to be in melee range, needs to be up close and personal to be operating at maximum effectiveness. Interestingly enough, though, Burning Core have seeded a load of pressure around this Drake, and it's actually Sengoku who are going to be able to rotate over and start this one up.
Absolutely they will, and any extra scaling is always going to be appreciated, as Vital might get caught out.
Yeah, Hut back there, still going to be able to dash over that wall, but taking a fair chunk of the early stages. Loser is going to be forced to dash away, but doesn't quite get over the wall. It's way too thick to run through, and Vital is the beneficiary of the enemy support's mistake.
Yeah, that was thicker than my mental capacity there from the wall. So it's an unfortunate one for Loser. Ends up being the loser in that trade, and it's just going to be the Dragon secured here. Sengoku, it's not an explosive early game, but everything they're doing is efficient, everything they're doing is correct. And that's enough, I think, especially when Flawless makes mistakes like this.
Yeah, that was a rare mistake from Jet, though, missing with the Shuriken. Still forces the ultimate out of Burning Core's jungler, but the disengage from Sengoku just strong enough to get them away. Rift Herald going to be summoned in the mid lane. A few plates going in favor of Dice and Flawless, but not quite enough to take out this tower.
Not quite enough just yet, and it does also create now that window of opportunity where potentially Sengoku can look to do something towards other parts of the map. And yeah, that's just not necessary, is it? Just a bit mean, really. I mean, the Essence Reaver is going to come through here for the side of Yuhi, so at least you do have that spike. Issue is you've now blown teleport, so that's one less of your globals available, at least the advantage one. And the big part about that is the fact that typically, in sort of this mid-game spike, you want your Pyke to just be perma-roaming, because right now, in the 2v2, you are technically winning, but finding the initial engage onto a Zeri Yumi is very hard, as well as enough lockdown to kill them. So instead, you want Pyke to just roam around the map, impact the top side, impact the mid lane. Ezreal plays safe, and if something happens where the other bot lane roams, you can teleport to answer. And then you're just 5v5, you're fine, and the wave pushes, and they lose CS. So the issue with this is that obviously you are losing that macro advantage, and you're not necessarily enabling your Pyke the way you would want to otherwise.
I think that's key, because we have got ultimates available for Dice and Rayfaki. A lot of ways of locking people down, which obviously combos very, very nicely with the Pyke, and we're just not seeing that so far from Burning Core. The early game for them has been mistake-free for the most part, but they've not been able to make the proactive plays that you need to do if you're going to beat the best team in the league.
Yeah, and I think as well, I think a lot of credit needs to be going over to Once as well in this early game. Hasn't found a lot in terms of just gank wise, but the attempts this guy is coming down with, I think, are really interesting. There's a lot of unique paths that other junglers haven't really been trying out. He's not like other junglers, but it definitely feels like
That's
it's
a bit
just
more.
one or
That's a
two.
bit more Aphelios than Viego. He's not like other. Well, I suppose Viego is a bit
I
of a
don't-
bad boy.
I don't land on Moonlight Vigils. I'm not like other AD carries. Um, it's an interesting.
He's not even in the game, bro. He's not even in the game.
No one will know. It's fine. No one knows what I'm talking about. And if you know, you feel the same way, so it's fine.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's interesting. I think that we see Once doing the things that a lot of I think minor region junglers don't necessarily attempt or consider as ideas, and it's stuff that I think really separates him as one of those top top two junglers in the league, and I want to see more of this kind of gameplay because it's a joy to watch, honestly, and it does, I think, make from the shadows Sengoku so much of a powerhouse that isn't really talked about as much.
Yeah. They are very understated. I feel like as a team in the way that they get their wins. 15 minutes on the clock. This game pretty much even. Burning Core with a slight gold advantage, but the kills in favor of Sengoku. Once potentially looking to grab a couple more in that mid lane, but just trying to defend this tower.
I love the fact the macro is, yeah, we push 2v2 harder, so we're gonna just hit the tower eventually. Oh,
Vital diving in onto you. He forcing the flash out of that Ezreal. Obviously still has defensive tools in his kit, but a little bit more vulnerable in the bot lane.
and this is the threat, right? This is what Yuumi Zeri can do and why it needs to get bullied early on, because if you don't, they can start just jumping on you and becoming an absolute menace to the society that is the bottom side of the map. And in exchange, the mid tower does fall, so there is at least some punish coming through here from the side of Burning Core. You're not going to get full plates, but at the very least you do get that going for you. And it feels like whilst Sengoku now are starting to scale into it, quietly, Burning Core have been having great games elsewhere. Mid is slowly but surely chipping away. They got CS lead there. Top lane, Paz and Rayfaki have been in complete isolation, but the farm lead is there for Rayfaki. The tower is down as well. This Gnar is kind of the win condition we were discussing in Champ Select, and I feel like Rayfaki has done a great job of securing that Gromp and securing the CS lead in general.
But I think the key thing for me is we expected winning bot lane for Sengoku just on terms of the nameplates. We expected that Rayfaki was the sort of player that could actually take it to Paz in the top lane. What I don't think we necessarily expected was that DICE would be able to survive the laning phase against Jet. Obviously, the Akali not the strongest laner, but Jet is always the sort of player that can find those solo kill angles where other players really can't see it. And I mean, the fact that he's lost his mid lane tower really just speaks to how DICE has actually stood up and been counted up against the best player in the league.
I think it's less about surviving and more about thriving in the lane, actually, because that CS lead isn't a small one. The tower damage difference is massive, and it's going to create a bit of a difficult state here for Sengoku, because with the Herald already falling, it's quite hard for their composition to actually break through these towers. They don't have a lot of range, they don't have a lot of siege potential. It's all on winning a team fight and then charging it in afterwards. So Sengoku, whilst they are stacking up dragons, they're also stacking up a bit of a debt in terms of gold.
Yeah, and a Cloud Soul is great when you're able to sort of move around the map and really pull your opponent apart. But I feel like Burning Core, with this composition, especially with the Azir, you can kind of just stand at towers and wave clear ad infinitum. So the ability that Sengoku have to actually force plays onto Burning Core, I think, is much less as long as those structures are still on the map.
Yeah. I think also with Dragon, the Cloud Drakes and the Souls, it really depends on the type of composition you have, right? Because sometimes it's looking like a Cumulus Nimbus, and sometimes it's looking like a piece of cotton in terms of how much damage it's actually enabling you to deal. So I think it's not exactly the greatest in the world, but it is good, obviously, for the Akali. So even if you allow the Drake stacking, it's not terrible for Burning Core. I think them having their gold right now on their mid-game spiking Ezreal, their mid-game spiking Gnar, their Azir that can do things later but is also very good on 2 items. Fighting around this timing is going to be great for Burning Core, so just delaying until you get to those 2 item spikes on everyone where they're components are completed, is really your best bet to just really snowball the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Yuhi's inventory, that Caulfield's Warhammer, and the tier oh so close to 360 stacks. So once that item gets completed into the Manamune, it will straight away transform into that Mirror Mana. And yeah, that's that 2-item spike that you're really talking about is a power point for the Ezreal.
The only issue with this Ezreal build is that you aren't going to be going Divine Sunder now. So you are going towards those more lethality-based items, which means that chunking through things like the Viego later on, but more importantly, the Scion, is going to be a bit of an issue, especially when you have the healing network of Yuumi. I am wondering how well Burning Core will be able to play those front-to-back team fights when they do have these more burst-centric builds on both of their primary carries.
Yeah, because there's also not a lot of anti-heal in there as well. So if that burst doesn't connect onto someone like Once or someone like Paz if he's being healed up with the Yuumi, then Sengoku could just go again. And once you use your burst, you kind of have to wait a little bit longer to use it again. That's why it's called burst. And if you don't have that consistent damage onto these targets, maybe they just out-heal you.
Yeah, I mean, Samurai are known for not just waging battles, but waging wars. So they can do long battles. That works. And in fact, it might be the beneficial idea here for the side of Sengoku in general. So, Reifaki, though, on top side.
Getting preyed on by Once. Final chapter is going to be used. The flash forward with the Heartbreaker strike into the snare as well. Second kill of the game from Once. A bit more proactivity from Sengoku, which I think is necessary.
Absolutely. And the thing is, as well, is that they are losing the tower in the bottom side in exchange. But if they can trade that for this top tower, it's kind of worthwhile overall. However, that play was made on the top side. That means that numbers are going to be lacking the bottom side. So immediately, Burning Core, they move towards that bottom side. They try to give DICE a lot of room to just bully Paz out. The barrier being popped there from the Summoner Spellbook to make it a little bit easier to wave clear without getting chunked. Remember, Emperor's Divide is available here for DICE.
Yeah, there's a lot of damage down onto this tower. Flawless, just making sure his mid laner wasn't going to get caught out there. Did steal away a little bit of that gold, but this is the power that you can apply with something like the Azir. One of the few mid lane mages that can actually survive it and really thrive on these side lanes.
Yes, that's 2 towers there for Burning Core, using the Herald, of course, in exchange for the 1 and the kill topside. I feel like you're actually pretty happy with that if you are Burning Core, because you want that gold injection right now. This is where your champions can really start to take over, and remember, there's that Hullbreaker pickup here for Reifaki. This lane isn't getting easier for the Scion to farm out in that side wave. The only thing that I'm worried about now is that it's a very long lane, and potentially you can just get run down here, or a freeze could keep being enacted here from the side of Sengoku. However, no one freezes in this region, so it should be fine. I'm kidding, not kidding. So it could create a little bit of an awkward dynamic to try and get that, especially with this dragon spawning now. It's not like anyone is realistically... you can't step that far up in this situation without potentially getting ganked by other members. So I like the fact that Burning Core, they are rotating down towards the dragon. They're prepping it correctly, using that Azir turret to give yourself that push easily.
It's just free priority in the mid lane, which is also important when you are attempting to contest some of these neutral objectives. Of course, once Sengoku are able to escort a minion wave into the Sun Disk, it will be falling down in due course. And with 15 seconds to go until the Cloud Drake is on the Rift, Burning Core giving up a little bit of that priority, and Sengoku feeling free to move into the river.
I have a question for you. The Sun Disk is a structure, right?
Yes.
Structure, a house is also a structure.
Yes.
Would that make the Sun Disk free real estate? Anyway, we're preparing for this dragon. Seems like both teams trying to poke out and apply.
Yeah. Jet waiting on the flank, looking for a play onto potentially loser, but it is going to be spotted out there. The True Shot Barrage also raining a little bit of damage onto the members of Sengoku, but of course, NT will be able to heal them up a little bit. This would be soul point for Sengoku if they can pick it up, but the fact that Jet has had to move into a little bit more defensive of a position, he's going to have to be playing this one a little bit more front to back, as there goes the final chapter, but it doesn't connect onto anybody. Flawless, able to get the smite as the engager started off. Vital hitting there with the Ultra Shock Laser, dealing so much damage as in dives Jet, but he gets shoved back. The perfect execution may be his death, but he's able to get over the wall just in time before diving into the back line and falling down. But Vital untouched on the front line, dealing the damage on the Zeri. It's a complete wash. So much damage in favor of Sengoku.
Yeah, all eyes were on Jet, but it doesn't need to because Vital's there to do plenty of the deeps in exchange. They focus so much on shutting out the Akali that the Zeri can just run free, and that's the problem when playing against so many of these strong champions. They just have so many options, so much damage, so much sustain, so much utility, so much threat for the side of Burning Core to deal with. And now the Baron being started up, but it is Yuhi on the Ezreal. The poke is there. The question is whether or not the sustain will be there to match it.
Yeah, the health bars are low-ish, but not quite low enough. Paz is still deceptively tanky on this Sion, and with that TP being channeled, Yuhi is going to be forced to exit as Jet. Looking for a kill. Actually, would be his first of the game, but not quite able to find it. And now Sengoku finally find themselves in a gold advantageous position and find themselves in a decent place to start putting a bit more of a stamp of their authority on this game.
So I like the attempt here from the Yuumi, but the Shuriken flip ends up missing, so Jet can't go in properly. And from here, it's just a case of kiting it out slowly but surely. Flawless, blinking health bar has to flash away, and from here, there's no real frontline. You're reliant on that Emperor's Divide, so once that cooldown is down, as well as this Mega Gnar, there's nothing to stop the Zeri. You can just free hit easily here as Vital, and that's all that needs to be done. The damage is starting to come through. It might be a little bit of a pea shooter, but eventually 1,000 cuts will hurt, and it's plenty in the end for a triple kill for the Zeri.
Yeah, so will 1,000 Ps. I'm telling you, man, if someone shoots 1,000 Ps at you, eventually you're going to be getting injured. And that's the philosophy that Vital applied in this fight, and it went pretty well for him. Now 3 items on the Zeri. Right? Those Ps are going to be coconuts fairly soon, and I'm telling
that
you,
sounds
those,
like Socrates.
those really hurt.
Socrates be like, peas are coconuts. Yes. Banger.
Behold, a man.
Behold, Dynamo. Magician impossible. I shall turn your peas into coconuts, and I shall turn your towers into gold, says Sengoku, as they're slowly but surely using that Baron buff to whittle away. And we did mention that there were some issues with getting down that mid tower. Well, they might not be able to siege, but the cannon could do a pretty good job of it, so they're going to be able to get that one, and it just feels like it's all about getting that little bit of Bitcoin, that little bit of Dogecoin, that little bit of other coin to get themselves that's my currency, by the way. Don't at me. You know, they're just trying to get as many structures as they can to get that gold, just to get themselves financially stable for their next fights.
Well, if you're talking about financial stability, I feel like Bitcoin is probably not a word that you should be uttering. That does have a tendency to crash down, as does Vital, who's been looking really, really clean on this Zeri. 4-0-1, 700 gold bounty, and as we saw in that previous fight, Burning Core, they don't really have a way to reliably deal with this pick.
Yeah, it is an issue, and I think that it really creates the important AD carry dynamic, which is the idea of cooldown tracking, right? If you are on the side of Burning Core, you have to match Akali and Zeri and maybe Viego too, right? These are your 3 big threats, and you need at least 1 CC for all of them. So what options do you have? You've got Pillar, which is You've got Hook, which is And then aside from that, you've got Emperor's Divide, Nar's Kit. That's it, basically. That's all you've really got. Yes, Pikey, but we ignore that. So it creates a dynamic where you only have realistically 2, maybe 3 of your nice abilities to mark 3 players. Which makes things very, very difficult for the Burning Core frontline to actually deal with what Sengoku can provide when they do try and dive in.
And this is why we have issues with the Pyke when we get to these points in the game, because everyone's a little bit tankier and you are absolutely not. It's where the stuff like the Nautilus is really, really important, so you can just get that guaranteed snap engage.
I think as well that the Pyke is kind of... It's a blessing and a curse here for the side of Burning Core, because it is a curse in regards to the fact that you don't have that CC, you don't have that utility that a Nautilus, you don't have that ease of execution that these sort of other engaged supports can provide. But what you do get is stonks, you know? you do have that ability to suddenly just... he's like a leprechaun.
Recollect, this is sounding like copium right now. Burning Core have 1 kill, and if there's anything that I know about Pyke passive...
I was talking about Bitcoin and Dogecoin. I'm only on Hopium. That's all I've got.
I'm not taking any financial advice from you.
Neither do I. Anyway, what I was going to say...
I'm just picturing like Homer Simpson, like Money could be exchanged for goods and services. Like, wow, holy moly, I'm learning a lot today.
You know what also you can learn? That they need to create a St. Patrick's Day themed Pike skin. Because
I'm ready.
Because he can give you a pot of gold whenever, he does get those kills. So the amount of money this man can generate could potentially just swing the game immediately back in Burning Core's favor off of one team fight. You get a couple resets on that X marks the spot and the death from below, because X marks the spot of that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah. Every single Irish person I know would hate that.
I know. Shout out to Damon. How you doing?
Yeah, and every single Boston Irish person would love it. That's how it goes.
Shout out to people from the better Boston. we love you here. I like the fact that we're on an English broadcast of a Japanese league talking about the differences between English and the US Boston, as well as the Leprechauns. Only here, ladies and gentlemen, do you get this level of content.
It's a very, very specific subset of people that are going to appreciate.
We have a specific set of skills.
Really? Is that what we're calling them now? Okay. 30 minutes on the clock. Game is still relatively even, although Sengoku definitely have gained some decent advantages for themselves, sat in that soul point, that Baron spawning in a few minutes as well, and they're going to likely have the priority around that. But Burning Core, they are starting to scale up. This Gnar at 3 items, this is Azir at 3.5 items, and Yuhi completing that Sharilda's grudge as well. They're definitely behind, but they are not out of it.
Yeah, the question for me now is whether Sengoku can be a bit like Kermit the Frog, find that happy little rainbow connection between the mid and late game, to really transition this one into sort of a closeout. They do need to secure themselves that Baron when they can, which means they need to set up the vision control. They haven't been able to do so just yet, and honestly, they don't have the greatest of wave clear in order to enable themselves to do so. They do have a safe warding group with the Scion, but the longer that Scion is here, it means that no one is matching the Gnar, unless you want to send your Akali, which you can do right now, but it's not exactly ideal.
Well, because you're unlikely to actually kill Rayfaki, and I feel like this Akali in the side lane, you need to have a little bit of kill threat to actually make it work.
You really do. And right now, I think that we are sort of just waiting out the moment where Sengoku are going to feel like they're safe enough, secure enough in their vision to start this one up, and they are going to start it up now. Question for me is whether or not Burning Core are able to contest. They do know it's happening. They spotted it out with the True Shot Barrage. Flawless is in the area. If anyone could steal this, it would be Flawless.
Yeah, but here comes the rest of Sengoku diving onto the Burning Core jungler and taken out. No Smite Steel going to be available for Burning Core, although they may take the Fighter's Jet. Able to dash over the wall. Sengoku run out wearing purple and get a kill to boot.
Yeah, you know what else starts with A, aside from Akali? Annoyance. Because that's what Jet can be on this one. Be a very slippery little demon there in the mid lane. And I love the aggression here coming through from Paz as well. Paz and NT, the top support duo that just go, yeah, you can't kill us. We're tanky. We're healing. You still haven't got any healing cut, so you're doing nothing to us. Just sort of tanks it out, and Flawless ends up going down. They use the disengages that they do have available, the Emperor's Divide, but it's just not enough. The damage and the sheer tankiness that comes through from the Sengoku lineup is just too big here for the side of Burning Core.
And the thing about this Baron buff as well is looking the top left of your screens, Drake is spawning in a minute's time. That will be soul point for Sengoku if they are able to pick it up. And Cloud Soul, much maligned as a Dragon Soul, but I feel like when you've got champions, especially like this Zeri, you're feeling very, very happy about picking it up.
Flawless was just getting shredded there from Vital. I mean, it's a 4-item Zeri versus a Trundle who built Knight's Vow second. You know this guy is going to get absolutely destroyed in these team fights. And yes, you can take away the Scion stats to an extent, but is it going to be enough to tank out in these front-to-back team fights? I'm not sure. I feel like we're praying on a miracle here for Burning Core, and that has to come through Rayfaki. Problem is, if you're going Hullbreaker, you're not getting as great stats for when you are in these team fights.
It very much feels like Burning Core are sort of trying to play in multiple directions. Like, you touch out those 2 items. The Knight's Vow is an item that says, I want to stay near my carries. I want to be this, like, shielding force of them. I want to protect them in the team fights. But the Hullbreaker, much more concerned with side laning and applying pressure that way. So Burning Core not really generating a cohesive identity with their itemization purchases, and possibly as a result of that, possibly just a result of the pressure that Sengoku have been applying for the last 10-15 minutes, Seoul is going over without even a whisper of a contest from Burning Core.
And it feels like Burning Core, they need themselves to win at least sort of 2 fights. If they can get themselves a Baron steal, or maybe play for Elder, this is a potential way back into the game for themselves. The question for me is, will the broken clock strike twice?
Yeah, I'm surprised by this lack of proactivity, honestly, from Burning Core. That's all our criticisms of this team in spring was that maybe they tried to do too much at points that ended up biting them in the arse, but this game has been really defined by Burning Core's refusal to push forward and to really take it to Sengoku. And we can see that Sengoku absolutely free to push in this bot lane. The wave clear that DICE is putting out is significant, but if Sengoku can start working on multiple lanes, well, that Azir can't be everywhere all at once.
Yeah, and crucially, it feels as though Burning Core are lacking in that damage department. They had their 2-item spikes, but the game was very passive in that state, and it felt like now they're entering a state where this Zeri is permanently online. The damage from Vital is just humongous, and this Akali is 4 items too. It feels like if you look at the carry itemization, Sengoku just hit a little bit harder, so we need to find a Dream Engage. Does that mean that DICE looks for something now that this Zhonya's is online? Maybe you get a shuffle, maybe you play off of something like this, but when you get hit like that, oh, it hurts.
Yeah, but you need to do something. You can't just keep bleeding out these advantages as Jet diving into that Shroud on the side lane. Well, I mean, I imagine that Burning Core's aspirations are a little bit higher than V3.
That's true. That is true. It definitely, if you do want to come back into it, you've got to find something. To me, maybe it's a case of now we just farm out for Ezreal 4 items, we farm out for Gnar 4 items, and we just try to play for a steal at Elder. The problem is that Sengoku don't seem... There's 2 teams in the LJL that don't allow flips. It's DFM and it's Sengoku. There's a reason why these guys are the top 2 teams right now. And if you go for a 50-50, it's not actually 50-50. That's a fight about to break out.
And you know what? It's interesting that you bring up DFM, because this is kind of reminding me of the first game of the split that we saw from Sengoku versus DFM, where they somehow managed to win a game versus DFM without anyone dying. It was a very, very similar style to this. It was Sengoku utilizing the pressure that they had. Their opponent maybe playing a little bit too passive at points, but fundamentally, Burning Core don't feel like they've got anywhere that they can engage and force an advantageous fight, similar to how DFM felt on day 1.
And it also feels like it's a really good sign that Sengoku isn't that reliant on one style.
Ooh, final chapter, gonna buy a bit of time. So much damage onto Flawless! What the bloody hell was that, Vital? Disgusting amounts of damage done, as the Gnar is going to be falling down as well. Burning Core, they opted into a fight, but it goes horribly wrong. A triple kill for the Zeri, and Sengoku, they just needed 1 fight to end this game.
Yeah, I mean, lightning doesn't strike twice, but I can tell you when Zeri does this much damage, it doesn't need to. That was plenty of damage out of Vital. Jet gets 2, so finally on the board in that one, and it's just a little bit too clean here for the side of Sengoku. Burning Core, they thought they had a window. They thought they found something, but the only thing they found was the Nexus being blown up.
Sengoku continue their winning streak into the double digits with their 10th dub of summer.
I think this raises something amazing here for the side of Sengoku, because this team is a team that they can bruise you, they can battle you, and they can just swing hands as much as they want to in a game, and they'll win. Or they can just play away. They can just play back, just chill on a Sunday evening, and they'll win either way. The fact that they have this flexibility of style is incredible to witness, and I'm scared for anyone else to play against this team.
Yeah, well, indeed. They do have it all. They really can perform when it matters, and your face says that you weren't expecting me to be here right now, but I am. I've ganked your desk, you know, that's just how it happens. It's my desk now. I'm the captain here, you know. But either way, going into this one, we got the draft already on the screen, and obviously you guys just went through this draft. The Scion being picked up there, obviously a little bit more unusual. Were you quite happy with how this one went middle court? We talked about that top lane quite a bit.
Well, I mean, in the end, I was happy. Obviously, Paz losing out pretty significantly in lane versus Rayfaki, but the Scion, it's a pick that can survive laning phase. Obviously, your wave clear is actually pretty good for a tanks, but It's a lot more about getting to the later stages of the game. And we saw how even though Rayfaki could get a lot of advantages in that lane versus the Scion, they never ended up being able to do anything with them. So I'm going to say Worth.
Yeah, no, worth indeed. And as we talked about, it was a slower early game, 15 minutes. It was pretty close still, no crazy leads. Obviously, Sengoku then start to etch out leads here and there. They build bigger and bigger leads. And I feel like this is just the Sengoku way. They start slow. They don't necessarily just smash down the door, but then they'll slowly but surely get those leads, take control, and just slowly win the game. Which, to be fair, I don't know if that's worse than losing to DFM, who just run you down quickly.
It really does depend on what you're. I'll be honest with you. I think losing in general doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those where I definitely would not be a fan of playing against either of these teams right now. I think they're both really strong. I need to say one thing about the draft quickly. I think when a team has the first 3 picks and I feel like they've lost in all 3, I think something's gone very wrong. I don't know how Zera Yumi gets out without you getting realistically much back in response, especially into. You don't play Azir blind into Jet. That's just not a thing.
Yeah.
It went really well. Like, it did go fine here for Dice in the early lane, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
For Burning Core. That's the problem. That you need something to happen if you have Ezreal Azir mid game. You got to do something, or you're just going to slowly but surely get outscaled, especially against Yumi, and that's exactly what we saw. Yumi gives you the adaptive damage. It gives you plenty of CC and engage. It gives you everything you need from healing. If you don't play a good early game versus a Yumi comp, regardless of anything else, you're probably going to lose. That's just how the champ is.
Yeah, it felt like Hot Rock Core, instead of Burning, because like they had heat, but nothing was really going off. They needed ignition there. They needed a little bit of a spark in both like literal, but also metaphorically. Like in this game, I feel like they needed to kind of have a bit more like flames, to the game.
Yeah.
I feel like it was kind of a slow.
I think
I
think Melting Core maybe would be a little bit more appropriate because they just sort of fell away and didn't really apply themselves much.
Well, with that, Sengoku are going to go 10-0. They are really, really looking pretty strong. Burning Core, maybe not showing the greatest position for themselves, but I will say it's really hard to do well against Sengoku. We said it about many a team where they've just not looked that good, but specifically against Sengoku. So you got to take that with a pinch of salt. Maybe you'll look better next week when we could come back. But that is our final game of the day, and it is going to be Sengoku topping the tables once again. But let's have a quick rundown of today's action, just in case you guys at home missed any of this stuff that you didn't see today. So we started off with CGA versus Axis, which I would definitely recommend going back to and having a watch, unless you're a CGA fan, in which case it was a little bit of a sad one. Axis pulling it out of the bag, taking it to late game and picking up the win. Shout out to Megaman, absolute huge performance. Game number 2 came through shortly, V3 versus the Hawks, and it did go as you would expected, with the Hawks picking up the win, and V3, to be fair, not necessarily having their greatest of days. Game number 3, DFM versus Russell Jess's, the Clash of Titans, was a little bit more one-sided than we would have liked to see. DFM just looking absolutely phenomenal there, and Russell Jess's not keeping up to pace. And then game number 4 to end it all. Burning Core then not able to really pick up any pace against Sengoku, and Sengoku closing out a very clinical game as we are used to. With that being said, that is the roundup of today's games, but we're not done just yet. You know it's coming. I know it's coming. People at home probably know it's coming. It's time for Mess or Impress.
Oh,
let's go! Yeah, man like Chris. Shout out to our producer. He brought the stuff. Let's go now. Obviously, we're going to start with the messes. We will start with the messes. We go through them, and then we'll go to the Impress to end on a lighter note. So, recollect, for today's games, who was your mess? It can be a player or a team.
It's V3, isn't it? Like, it's got to be V3. I'm sorry, but like, this is a team that, sort of first couple of days, I have so much hope for. I think this is a team that could easily beat Axis, should have beat Axis early on. I think they should have won another game. But watching this match, it's like no one wanted to win. It felt like they just sort of showed up and then they just left. Like they didn't do anything for the whole game, and it's sad because it feels like that aggression, that early power that they had. They were a top 4 team in the early game easily, in my opinion. But now it's just gone, and I don't know what's happened.
Yeah, Middlecourt, who's your mess for today?
CGA, man. Every time. Every damn time, man. It's a bit of a crazy game today, but I think fundamentally the thing that's really bothering me about CGA is that they are making the same mistakes that we've seen this team make time and time again. And in summer, it feels like a lot of the teams around them, especially the likes of the Hawks, for example, have leveled up slightly, and it feels like CGA have kind of been left behind. And the fact that they're now tied with Axis is not something that I would have expected from this team coming into the start of the split. They do tend to have these wobbles in the middle of the split, but they really need to fix things fast. Otherwise, they legitimately could be dropping out of playoffs.
Yeah, indeed, definitely need to look into that one quickly for themselves. My mess is actually a little bit less flame than normal, but it's gonna be Swamp because, dude, you can't steal a man's pentakill. Like, what is going on with that? Like, how are you gonna do? He's popping off in the fight. He's solo killing all of these guys around him, and then the GA pops, and Swamp's like, you know what? No. Bam! You're my kill. Like, it's like, no, Swamp, that's not okay. I don't like that from you.
That's messed up. That's messed up.
Yeah, that's messed up. Yeah. So, on to the second portion, the lighter half of the segment. Recollect, who is your impress for today?
Axis.
No! Oh, come
No.
on!
No, it's realistically speaking, it's Sengoku. Like, this team is showing me a lot of signs. I think that they are ready to not just take the league, but maybe look towards the international stages a little bit. I think they're spiking at the right time. If you want to have a good split, it's got to be the summer split for when we're rolling to Worlds. Realistically speaking, this is a team that, if they can play their style and actually continue to improve, because this team has gotten better pretty much every week, and I think that's a reasonable statement to make. It's a team that, if they continue this kind of trend, they actually just become probably the best minor region team, or like a top 3 if nothing else. So this team has a lot of potential, and they're fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah, clip it and ship it. I like that.
Yeah.
Middlecourt, who is your impress? Who impressed you the most today?
Well, it's probably DFM, actually, for similar reasons to Recollect. I feel like this team really leveled up and had one of the cleanest games that I've seen from them today. And I find it so crazy that we've got two teams at the top of the LJL that so obviously have different styles and different philosophies in the way that they want to play the game. Sengoku, a lot slower. And I mean, DFM, 25 kills in 24.5 minutes today. If that doesn't demonstrate this is a team that wants to smash you in the early stages, I don't know what's will. They look really, really clean today, and I'm excited to see how they match up against Sengoku when we next see that go down. J-Real, to finish it off, who was your impress for today?
Who was my impress? Well, on the topic of who I gave the mess to, it's not actually going to be Swamp who was my impress. My impress was actually Megaman. I think he played really, really well. We talked about it pre that game about coming through and playing a carry. It's exactly what we wanted to see. He came through, he pulled the Azir, and I think he had a really, really strong performance, and he's going from strength to strength. So that is my impress today, Megaman. Good job, bro.
Can I change my mess to German internet? Is that an option?
True.
Can I pivot that?
True.
Is that an option?
Shout out to Berlin. Berlin is, Berlin internet.
Shout out to Berlin. Get better internet.
Man, they got the money. Like, come on, sort it out.
The memo.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it. It's like this big, like, modern city. Like, it's got a load of young people there. Very hip, very now. God, I sound.
A lot of esports goes on there.
A lot of esports, but then you can't get an internet connection. What's up with that?
I mean, honestly, that checks out for esports. Not gonna lie.
Well, with that being said, we are going to close the show. It has been a bit of a banger, a few upsets, a few good games, a few absolute stomps, but it's all that you want to see in a day's work. That has been day 10. We are going to be taking a break now for about a week. You're not going to see us until next Sunday, so the 24th. Put it in your diary. Tell your nan, tell your mum, tell your sister, tell your brother, tell everyone, tell your postman and their cat, who might be called Pat, but be there on the 24th, Sunday. We'll be back with some more action.